have an exciting guest. Zena is here. Where are you at, girl?
I am here.
There she is. Doesn't she look amazing today, everyone? She's all prepared. She's ready. She's looking
A
good.
lot of work. It was a lot of work.
I love it. I love it. Well, you look natural. All right. So, Zena, we wanted to highlight her because I know a lot of you are going to relate with her testimony and her share of where she was, but also get a lot of hope. Oops. But also get a lot of hope for what's possible for you. And so, Zena, just let's just start with we'll let the cat out of the bag. Talk about. So, I know you started with us in July, so that was a little less. It was less than a year ago, right? Whatever that is, 10 months or so. But I know paying off your debt was one of your biggest financial goals, and I know you now we're like talking about how do we build wealth and how do we take that to the next level. But yeah, like how much debt have you guys been able to pay off in the last like 10 months or so?
So we were a little over $90,000 in debt. And so we had about 14 credit cards, and what I tell people, we were robbing Peter to pay Paul, and then I had to take a loan out from Judas. Is essentially our situation. And so we've paid off the 90,000. We still have maybe about 10 because in the paying off my car died, so I had to get a new car or another car. But that's what we went through is we had the debt, we had kids in college, my husband has medical issues. It was just a lot.
Yeah.
And spinning plates and floating cards and debt balances, and we just reached a point where we had to make some decisions.
Yeah. How many of you guys can relate to that? I mean, just, Zena, talk about what was life like if you could try to paint the picture of what it was like before we met, just like you said, shuffling between 14 different cards, right? I feel like you need like I don't know, like you need all these different alarms or different pop-ups or things just to try to keep it in order. Like, it had to be pretty
So,
stressful.
well, one card would max out, so it was sort of like, okay, we're not going to use that card, so we'll use another card, and that allowed me to keep paying on the card that had maxed out. So then by the time the second card maxed out, the first card was down enough, and the third card was down enough that we could use them until the third card maxed out, and then we went to the fourth card. And so then you were just um trying to do like picking a card that you're going to do more than the minimum on. So that would come down while you didn't use it, and you maxed out the fifth card, and then you just that's what it was. It was just that. It was my children are 18, 20, and 22, so it was borrowing money for my kids at certain points too. Um
And what was that
and
like? What was that like for you, Zena? Because I know how responsible you are and how giving you are and how much of a amazing provider you want to be. So just what was the hardest part about that for you? Because I can't imagine that that was easy.
it was just it's embarrassing. It is asking my children to trust me, like, guys, I promised I will pay you back. So my son, I probably borrowed money from him when he was 16. So his summer job, you have your kids, they go to a summer job, and I'm like, son, can I just borrow $500? And so I lost my job, and so I had a year where I didn't work. And like I said, my husband went from COVID to cancer to hip surgery to
Mm,
spinal surgery. And so it just
mm.
it was I looked at my money tree, it had no leaves, it had no roots, nothing was happening.
Wow.
And once I started working, I was working at a job where I was making $35,000 less than my previous job, but it was a much better space for me.
Mm. So what was it like then for you? Just like when you mentioned obviously a lot of the stress, and we'll talk about the happy stuff too in a second, but I want to know like how was it affecting maybe even just like your marriage or just your health to just have to be juggling that and managing the stress of that? I mean, I can't imagine what that kind of impact would have had on
It's
you.
exasperating. My youngest daughter, even though our kids are only 4 years apart, she was like, I've had a much harder life because things had to be decided months out if you needed new shoes or a coat or something. Where when I had the previous job, it was like, sure, like what do you want? We'll manage it, and we'll go get it. And so it was aggravating. It was a lot of exasperation over needless purchases that should have been nothing kind of thing.
Mm.
But it always became um dollar stores and things. Like, I'm like, I don't, like, just stop, like stop buying stuff.
Yeah. So then fast forward a little bit. So then obviously somehow in the crazy ethers of the internet, you somehow find us and then get started. So I know this is part of the fun of the story too, because now your husband is, spoiler alert, he's actually like on calls now and he's super supportive. But but like you first started and you like said yes, and like was he like your biggest cheerleader and like all about it, or what was it like?
Oh, so my husband didn't know that I started this. I think I was just at a point where it was, I'm doing this and I'm not telling anybody. And so I just kind of started the journey on my own.
Mm,
Uh, and I heard you mention AI. I was like, I was excited. They're real people. Because it's always my concern when you join this in terms of solutions and stuff. And Stone was absolutely wonderful and patient. I can be very sarcastic, and he handled my tone about things. And we even got to a point where I would say, "This is my problem," and then I would pause and be like, "This is what you're going to tell me to do, isn't it?" And he would be like, "Oh, it is." So just kind of
yeah.
embracing that mindset of what change looks like.
Hmm. So then what was your experience like? Like, so obviously you got a lot of help, you got a lot of breakthroughs, but what do you feel like, what do you feel made some of the biggest difference, right? Whether that was like certain support or breakthroughs that you had, like what were some of those things that made the biggest difference for you in getting where you are today?
So again, the one-on-ones, him being very patient, remembering things from one-on-one session to the next made me feel valued and that I counted, helping me to stop undervaluing myself
Mm-hmm.
and people that we have help us with something like the yard or whatever. And then the budget, while that again was very transparent to
Mm-hmm.
have you look at my budget and then
What was it, just getting that clarity? I'm so proud of you because I know you really had to step outside of your comfort zone and ask for some things and get uncomfortable and ask some people to pay up that weren't paying up and do some stuff like that. What was I know for you, you mentioned earlier when we were talking about just getting back your worth and getting back your confidence and things. Like what would you say that was one of the biggest takeaways for you as well, or what was that for you?
it was getting over that fear. So it was a lot of overcoming fear or
Mm.
processing through fear because it was still there.
Yeah. And I know so many people can relate to that. How many of you guys struggle with fear of man, people pleasing, right? That's super common. And that's one of the main things that holds people back from hitting their financial goals. So how amazing does it feel just to feel like you've broken that whether you call it an addiction, call it a fear, call it a what do you want to call it? But how does it feel to be so much freer and not have that just paralyzing you anymore?
It's I know it's exciting. The burden is off. As I paid the bill, we sat around as a family, and my daughter would cut up a card. Like I'm like, Target's paid off. She would cut the card, and then it would be Old Navy's paid off. We kept that card, but another card would be paid off, and she was like, I want to cut them up, and so it was good just to bring my community, the whole family together. Like we did this for a purpose, and now we're gonna do, take care of what we're supposed to.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I know you also like with your work as well, like you saw like an increase there where I know you mentioned like just, hey, like I'm actually asking for it and I'm making myself known and I'm standing up for what I'm actually worth and I'm not settling. Tell me about that too.
So what happened for me there was just going out. So I'm now part-time. I have my day job, but I'm also a part-time faculty member at my university. So having the confidence that I can be an instructor, so I'm teaching graduate classes and just trusting myself that I'm good enough to grade papers, tell people that are superstars in their district that you did a homework assignment incorrectly and you got to redo it is a big thing for me to get over. But I was like, I'm not taking your work until you get it right. So um, that was a step out for me of my comfort zone as well.
I love it. Awesome. Wow. How many of you guys are inspired just listening to this? I know I feel like I got goosebumps. This is so good. So yeah, like what are you excited about next? Right? What's your next big goal? What are you looking forward to? Now that you've got this new identity, you've got this new support, this new community. I mean, anything's possible from this place. So what are you pumped about next?
Well, one, retirement is
Mm,
actually like I don't have like it can be a choice where before it was you're gonna have to keep working. Um,
mm,
the other thing is sitting down with my three kids. So now we have three kids in college. Um, and working with them to make sure they don't land in this place.
mm.
So the financialness of it, helping us to be more intentional. Like at my house right now, I suspect there are three windows open, but the air conditioning's on. And you know what your grandpa's going to say, like, we're not cooling the outside. So just having us realize
Yeah.
we can take control. So that's like my next big thing is sharing these skills with my children, although they're adult children.
Mm.
Um,
And
and
how priceless is that? I mean, think about it, right? They're going to get to learn at such a younger age what
yeah,
no one was able to teach you, and now you get to be that example and give them a fresh start. I know for a lot of you, I see like Corrine here, I see other people we've worked with. I mean, what is that like for you just to know you're going to get to leave that kind of a legacy? You're going to give them practical tools, not just don't do what I did, right?
Having the goal, like small steps, in 20 years from now, we'll be here quicker than you know it. And what peace it will be to be able to sit down and be like, I can choose things.
One final little bit of encouragement again to people, someone who's maybe where you were before we got started, just still feeling that fear, feeling that overwhelm, feeling that is there hope? Can I really turn this around? What would you say?
One, I don't think the fear goes away, but it's the wisdom in terms of what is the best decision. And that's what got me moving.
Mm.
And then two, even as I look on the call, there are people that I've seen that were in the same kind of cycle that I was on, and just being encouraged by the people that are in the Facebook community as support. Because there were times when I would be like, I've got a question, and people were like, you got this. You can keep moving forward and remember what your goal is.
I love that. Zena, you're such an inspiration. I know I was inspired hearing your story again.